Hey there, extraordinary treasurers. Theft of information is a big business. There's a lot of people in the world whose full-time job is to crack passwords and gain access to online accounts and other people's computers. It's really important that we, as treasurers, take seriously our task of protecting our church's financial information. There's a British comedian by the name of Michael McIntyre who has a video on YouTube about how passwords have evolved. In the beginning of the internet and accounts, everyone had a special word that they tended to use for every password, maybe a child's name or a pet's name. Then as time went on, the need for security grew. We were asked to include a capital letter. Well, usually it was the first letter of the word. Then a number. Then a special character. Often the end result is our special word capitalized with a 1 and an exclamation mark at the end. At the end of his description, as people were laughing, Michael says, "There are a lot of people in this audience who are thinking, I better go home and change my password." I know, passwords are a hassle. Making them, remembering them. But I'm really hoping that if you're one of those people who have used the same password for years, for everything, this will motivate you to remedy that. In this video, we're going to be talking about 3 different levels of password protection. Level 1 is password protection for information on the Treasury computer. Level 2, Adventist giving, and Level 3 covers online access to bank accounts, credit cards, and other types of accounts. This is not just about setting up passwords and keeping them secure. Our churches are in the unique situation of needing to transfer passwords and account access to a new person on a fairly regular basis, sometimes planned and sometimes not. How do we protect the passwords but make provision for transition? If your church doesn't use Adventist giving or online bill pay or banking, you'll only need the first level of this video. But please, everyone needs at least level 1, so watch it. Level 1, we recommend, at a minimum, Jewel or the Treasury computer be password protected. Both is probably best. If you live alone and rarely take the computer anywhere, putting a password on Jewel may be good enough. But if you live in a home with multiple people and ages, it would make sense to put a password on the computer and on Jewel. If you take the computer in for repairs, make sure that Jewel is locked with a password. Let's talk about how to create a password. If you're like me, you don't sit around thinking of passwords and excitedly waiting for a chance to use them. So to make it easier, here are some password guidelines that will apply in any situation. Number 1, never use the same password for treasurer accounts as you do for personal accounts. Number 2, stay away from birthday or anniversary dates, things that can be found in the public record. 3, if you are using a pet's name or a grandchild's name, add lots of random numbers and characters. 4, don't use password for your password, or SDA, or 1234, or 777, or any group of identical or consecutive numbers as a password. Number 5, use something besides 1844. Every Adventist church we've pastored had 1844 in the burglar alarm or the Wi-Fi password somewhere. 6, use a mix of upper and lowercase numbers and symbols. And 7, it doesn't have to be completely nonsensical. You can use 2 unrelated words with a symbol and a number thrown in, like the one that's at the bottom of your screen. Only make up your own. That one's mine. Just kidding. Once you decide what your particular password will be, write it down before you enter it. Then enter it very carefully while you're looking at what you wrote, then double check to make sure it works. It's very frustrating to enter a new password only to find that you can't recreate it. As difficult as it is to figure out a good password, it's even more difficult for your successor to figure out what it is if you're not able to pass it on to them. one of the churches we pastored learned this the hard way, when the treasurer had a sudden massive stroke and was unable to even talk. And I had to figure out how to gain access to the church accounts that she had set up with passwords. Yes, that will rarely happen, but you or your successor will be glad you had a plan in place if it ever does. We recommend that all treasury usernames and passwords be clearly written down and stored in a place in the church where 2 or 3 reliable people who are rooted in your community, who don't move every couple of years, know where they are, but where they're not easy to find. Easy for them to find, not easy for anybody else to find. And you may need to have one also somewhere hidden in your home or office. Now let me add right here that writing on a sticky note, bank login info, and putting it in plain sight on the file cabinet next to your desk is not what I'm talking about. Hidden, not in plain sight. If you would like some ideas of where to store these passwords, contact an auditor. I know there are password apps for smartphones. I have one myself. But that wouldn't help if you were suddenly incapacitated. So we need to go old school here. If you need help figuring out how to install passwords on Jewel or your computer, let me know. Level 2, Adventist Giving. Adventist Giving is set up one of 2 ways. One, it could be under the treasurer's personal email and password, or under the church treasury Gmail account, also with its own password. If the Adventist Giving username and password given to you by the previous treasurer is attached to your church's treasury email, then you don't have to do anything. If the password seems weak, you can change it if you wish. But if the Adventist Giving username and password given to you by the outgoing treasurer is attached to their personal email account, then you need to contact Adventist Giving, tell them you're the new treasurer, and ask for your own login. I can provide you with the form that they require. When you're given the chance to create your own password, use the suggestions that we provided. Don't forget to add the Adventist Giving login information to the password pages that you are storing in case of emergency. Level 3, online banking access, credit cards, any other financial accounts you have set up. From here, it just gets more complicated, as you not only have a username and password, but in the middle of logging in, the bank is likely to ask you a secret question, like what is your mother's maiden name or the high school you went to. When you set up answers to those secret questions, note both the question and the answer, and write them, plus the username and password, under the name of each of your banking institutions and account numbers on the page that you are using for password storage. The question you need to ask yourself is, could a new treasurer access this account if I was not here to help them? Yes, I know that both Adventist Giving and your bank will give you, as a new treasurer, access after you go through the process of explaining and submitting the correct documents, but that's going to take time. This will keep you or someone else going until you get things sorted out. And if you ever get locked out of Jewel, I can help you with that too. One more thing. If you decide to have your computer remember all of your passwords automatically, you absolutely must make sure that your computer is protected with a password at all times, especially if the computer is sitting in the church office all week. Not doing it is a bit like unlocking the horse stalls, then leaving the barn door wide open as well. Not a good idea. I have one final word of caution. I strongly recommend using Adventist Giving and having online access to your bank, and using ACH for your remittance and putting your utilities on auto pay. But remember, there is a point where making your system too online dependent and too complex can mean that the next treasurer won't be able to surround it all. If you are a techie, try to balance out your desire to pull your church into the 21st century with the knowledge that you might want to hand the job off to somebody else someday. And that next person might not be as excited about technology as you are. Just something to keep in mind. Following these steps will make a transition to a new treasurer go more smoothly, whether it's a normal transition or an unexpected one. And as always, if you have any questions about any of this while it's going on, contact an auditor and we can help you figure it out. The last video in this section is about email address management. In years past, it never seemed to fail. We would get something from the conference office in our mailbox nearly every day. Things are different now. Nearly all of the training and updates you receive from us will be through email. And we have a suggestion to make it better for you. Hope to see you there.